Here we go again with another recap of the 2023 Superbet Chess Classic, one of the strongest events of the year. We have the World Champion here in Bucharest, Romania, Liren. We have the World Championship Challenger, Jan Nepomniachtchi. We have Fabi, and we're covering most of Fabi's games. And we have Alireza Firouzja, many other very strong chess players, except Magnus Carlsen, who decided not to play this one. He will be playing the next one, which is going to happen in just a few days, in fact, in Poland. But enough of Poland. Right now we are in day 7 here in Bucharest, Romania, and we have a big clash on our hands. We have Wesley So with the white pieces following closely behind Fabiano Caruana, and he will be meeting Fabi. So let's take a look at what happened in the game. Wesley So with the white pieces, Fabiano with the black pieces. Wesley starts with d4. He's an e4 player as well. He pretty much, as is the case with most of these top players, can play anything at move 1. You have to be very flexible as an elite level player to be able to perform at this level for a very long time and shuffle your openings so that you surprise your opponents on the regular. And this is exactly what Wesley is very much capable of doing as well. Today he starts with d4, knight to f6, knight to f3, d5, c4, e6, and now we have a g3 on the board. Wesley has been playing the Catalan with the white pieces. I want to say that he was an expert of the Catalan with the black pieces as well, so he's definitely well versed in everything Catalan. Of course, knight to c3 is also an option, and in this case, Fabi usually, or at least has been doing a lot of Rogozins lately, bishop to b4. But, of course, Fabi can pretty much play anything. Let's see what happened in the game. g3, bishop to e7, bishop to g2. Of course, by the way, black can do pretty much anything instead of bishop to e7. Can take on c4 first, can also throw in a check with bishop to b4. Bishop to e7 has been one of Fabiano's favorites. He played it against a lot of elite level players. He played against Sam Shankland as well at the US Championship. I believe it was last year in a very intense matchup. So definitely one of the, if not the most topical line of the Catalan. Castle, castle, and d takes c4. Black finally accepts the pawn sacrifice, which in return opens up the light square bishop, which is the Catalan bishop, one of white's most threatening weapons in this whole opening. Queen to c2, immediately going to recapture the pawn on c4, and now we have a6, one of the most discussed line at the elite level in recent times has been this very interesting pawn sacrifice with b5, a4, and now bishop to b7, a takes b5, and a6. And now we generally have knight to c3, take, and take on a8, take on a8, take on b5. White has an extra pawn, but black has pretty much proved time and time again that they have enough compensation for equality. Nevertheless, generally it's considered that white has a little bit of an edge and maybe at some point can find some ideas that will disturb, let's say, the harmony for black. So, and also, you know, maybe you don't want, maybe you woke up on the wrong side of the bed and you don't want to defend a position with a pawn down out of the opening. Fabiano was the case. He didn't want to defend a position with a pawn down, and he goes for the main line with a6, a4, and now bishop to d7. Queen takes c4, bishop to c6, immediately setting up this bishop on the long diagonal. It makes a lot of sense to do so. Then the knight is most likely going to go to d7, follow it up with bishop to d5, and then obviously c5 is the main idea in the position. Blast open the center and just say that you're going to have a pretty much equal situation as black. Let's see what happened. A bishop to g5, one of the many ways in which white can play this position, knight to d7, knight to c3, and h6. And Wesley has played this position before. In previous games, he played the move bishop to d2. In this one, he decides to go bishop takes f6, and in fact, he played it quite quickly, so he was obviously thinking, or at least planning, even before the game to go for this variation. Knight takes f6 and rook to d1. This move, rook to d1, is aimed at potential ideas of later on. If you do play something like bishop to d5 or knight to d5, at some point I'm going to go e4 as well. And obviously with the queen on d8 on the d file, you're going to have some difficulties playing the move c5, because I'm going to take back, and that's going to open up the d file. You're going to have some problems with the queen. So black needs to find a different plan in the position. That different plan, and pretty much one of the most topical plans in this line, is to go a5, which Fabiano played. You want to put the bishop on b4, then get the queen off the d file, as we were discussing, and then at the right moment go rook to d8, maybe rook to c8, and then c6 or c5 once the bishop is removed from c6. Very easy plan, very typical plan in this position, and this is going to be a very maneuvering sort of a game, right? It's considered that white does not have any sort of a huge edge in this position. It's all about who knows better the ensuing middle game plans. Knight to e5 was the move chosen by Wesley. Bishop takes g2, king takes g2, and now a bishop to a b4. Once again, it's all about finding some squares for my pieces. That's why you played the move a5. It might look like a weakening move, because you're also weakening this b5 square. But luckily for you, you still have this c7 pawn that can go to c6, and that's going to cover the square b5. So let's see what happened. e3, c6, as we were mentioning, defending that pawn, defending that square, b5, queen to b3, queen to e7, knight to a2, and bishop to d6. Knight to c4, black is having his dark square bishop hunted by white's knights, and of course you cannot allow knight takes d6, because once you go knight takes d6, queen takes d6, you might have to worry about queen takes b7, though this is not the case in this position, because you will trap the queen. In fact, this is why Fabiano played the move rook f d8, for example. Knight takes d6, queen takes d6, queen takes b7 is met by rook to b8, and that just simply traps the queen. There's nowhere to put the queen. You lose the queen, you lose the game, and you go home. And you probably quit chess if you are Wesley So and you lose a game like this. So don't do that, even if your name is not Wesley So. Let's get back to the game. And now rook to c1, and you might be thinking that yes, white is finally starting to threaten ideas of knight to d6, queen takes b7, and then queen takes c6, because I have another attacker on the c file. Nevertheless, Fabi doesn't even flinch in the position. He plays the move h5, in fact saying that, hey, maybe I'm going to start attacking you on the king side. Maybe I'm going to go h4, h takes g3, open up the h file, or h3. Maybe. This is just a maybe. Let's not forget, h4 bears its own consequences for my king and my king's safety as well as black. So probably white does not want to play the move h4. That's one thing that Wesley most likely is not going to do, because then you have ideas of knight to g4. It just feels like my knight especially is set up to take advantage of the fact that you just weakened this square g4. But you might be asking, hey, why don't I take on d6, and then once you take back with the queen, you can also take with the rook, of course, but this looks like maybe it's not the best setup. Knight to c3, maybe ideas of not knight to e4, but if I could get a knight to e4 at some point, like for example something like this, knight to e4, get a knight to c5, and I'm going to say that I have a better position. It's still extremely solid for black. Nevertheless, if we get this sort of entanglement with the knights, most likely white is going to come on top, or at least have a slight advantage. But what if I take on d6 with the queen after knight takes d6. Can I take on b2 and then just say that I'm going to take on c5? Well, no. And this is exactly what Fabi calculated, and calculated quite precisely. First of all, I have an easy way out, and that is queen to d5. That is just a simple double attack. I'm going to pick up the piece on a2 and just have a winning position. That's one way. Another way is to go rook to b8 and in fact give you the pawn on c6 and take advantage of the fact that I have a lot of activity on the second rank. So if you go knight to c3 to defend the knight on a2, I go knight to g4, I'm attacking the pawn on f2 and I'm attacking the pawn on e3 as well, taking advantage of the fact that the pawn on f2 is pinned by the rook on b2. Very cool stuff, very cool tactical ideas in the position. Wesley obviously understands that quite quickly, and he plays the move knight to c3. Fabiano responds with bishop to b4, and at this point Wesley says, okay, I've had enough. You've known your line, which I more or less expected. I did not pick the most ambitious line of my repertoire. I just tried to keep the game safe, keep the game simple. So, you knew your stuff. I'm just simply going to repeat, and this is exactly what he does with the move knight to a2. Bishop to d6, knight to c3, bishop to b4, knight to a2, bishop to d6, and the players agree to a draw. I cannot recommend anything in the position necessarily for white. Maybe you can try to go h4 yourself, but again, knight to g4 might be a problem, maybe even e5, and this is one of the main plans in the position for black, to just strike in the center with the move e5. For example, if you take on e5 and then you say, okay, once again, I'm going to take on a b7. The problem is that the knight on a2 is not very well placed, so I'm going to take advantage of that with the move queen to e4. You go back, and then I take on a4. That's one of the ways in which I can deal with the pressure. I can also do ideas of knight to g4 and coax you to take another pawn. Rook takes d8, rook takes d8, queen takes c6, and then resign on the spot. Rook to d1, a very nice tactical idea. You cannot take because your queen on c6 is not protected. And if you do go king to, well, actually you cannot go king to h2 because this is a nice mating net that black built for the last few moves. So very interesting tactical ideas for black. Wesley was not having any of that. Wesley wanted to improve the knight on a2. The only way to do that is with knight to c3. But once again, after bishop to b4, it just seems like there's trade-offs, and those trade-offs amount to a very balanced and very equal position. None of the players can do much, and they agreed to a draw. With that result, Fabiano is right now still in the lead, but due to the fact that Alireza did in fact win with the white pieces against Jan Nepomniachtchi, who is just having a horrible event, an event that he definitely wants to forget, an event that probably he did not want to play either, because he is just coming from a world championship match, a tedious world championship match, long, in Astana, in very cold weather. It's been just a nightmare for Nepo. He lost that match in the tie breaks. That was a heartbreak, and the one thing that you want to do after those type of episodes is to just go back home, back to your family, relax, have your support system next to you, and just forget about your troubles. Of course, he was supposed to get thrown in the Shark Tank. He had a contract, and he rightfully decided to follow that contract. So kudos to him. And he's playing this tournament. He's not having a good time here in Romania. He's on -2, lost a big game today against Alireza, and yeah, he's just not having a good time. Alireza, on the other hand, started off slowly, lost, against, I believe it was Wesley, in fact. But after that, bounced back and won 3 games. He's on +2, co-leading the event with Fabiano and Anish. By the way, another big result in today's round. He defeated the world champion Ding Liren. So we have Fabi on 4.5 points out of 7, Alireza 4.5 points out of 7, and then we have Richie and Wesley and Anish on +1, 4 out of 7. So very intriguing tournament. We are entering the championship rounds, last 2. Round 8 is tomorrow. Round 9 is going to follow the day after. And tomorrow, big clash and probably a game that Fabi's right now, as we are speaking, as I am recording this episode, he's most likely looking at Anish. He's going to be facing Anish with the white pieces. That's his last white in this event, and definitely an opportunity to try for an advantage, try to strike, and try to take a lead in the tournament. Well, big round coming up tomorrow. I will be here to give you all the updates after it's finished. So I will see you then.